Portugal is easy to underestimate on a map. It occupies the western edge of the Iberian Peninsula, bordered almost entirely by Spain and the Atlantic Ocean. Yet this relatively compact country has shaped global trade, language, exploration, and culture far beyond its size. Officially known as the Portuguese Republic, Portugal includes not only its mainland territory in southwestern Europe, but also the Atlantic archipelagos of Madeira and the Azores. That oceanic position is not a side detail. It is one of the keys to understanding the country. Portugal is both European and Atlantic, both continental and maritime. Its coastline, islands, territorial waters, and exclusive economic zone give it a strategic presence that stretches deep into the ocean. To understand Portugal, you have to see it not as a small country at Europe's edge, but as a gateway between Europe, Africa, the Americas, and the wider Atlantic world. Portugal's geography helps explain much of its history. Mainland Portugal lies on the southwestern portion of the Iberian Peninsula, with Spain to the north and east, and the Atlantic to the west and south. This position created both limits and opportunities. On land, Portugal developed beside a much larger neighbor, which encouraged a strong sense of political identity and independence. At sea, however, Portugal faced an open frontier. The Atlantic was not simply a boundary, it became a route. The country's internal waters and territorial sea make up a significant portion of its overall territory, and its exclusive economic zone is among the largest in Europe. This maritime dimension influenced fishing, navigation, commerce, defense, diplomacy, and national imagination. Portugal's landscapes also vary widely, from northern mountains and river valleys to southern plains, islands, cliffs, vineyards, forests, and coastal cities. That diversity gave Portugal regional variety while the ocean tied the nation together. Long before Portugal existed as a kingdom, people lived across the western Iberian Peninsula. Archaeological signs of settlement date back thousands of years, reaching into the prehistoric period around the 6th millennium BC. Over time, the territory that would become Portugal was influenced by different peoples and civilizations. Each left traces in settlement patterns, roads, agriculture, language, law, religion, and local identity. The region's position made it a contact zone rather than an isolated corner. It connected Atlantic coastal routes with inland Iberia, and later with Mediterranean and North African worlds. This layered past matters because Portuguese identity did not appear suddenly. It formed gradually through geography, conflict, migration, religion, trade, and political consolidation. By the early medieval period, the western Iberian lands were part of a changing frontier, where Christian and Muslim powers competed, negotiated, and reshaped control. The foundations of Portugal were built in that frontier world. A key turning point came in 868, when Portugal was established as a county within the Kingdom of León. At this stage, Portugal was not yet an independent kingdom, but the political outline was beginning to emerge. The wider Iberian Peninsula had been deeply transformed after 711, when Muslim forces entered and established control over large parts of the region. The long process later known as the Reconquista involved centuries of military campaigns, alliances, settlement, and religious political struggle. Portugal's early identity developed within that context. It was a frontier county, connected to Christian expansion but also shaped by the mixed cultural world of Iberia. In 1179, Portugal was formally recognized as a kingdom. That recognition mattered enormously. It meant that Portugal had achieved a separate political status, not merely as a borderland, but as a kingdom with its own monarchy, ambitions, and institutions. From that point, the country began to develop as a distinct European state. Portugal's medieval independence was never just a legal fact. It had to be defended, administered, and turned into a lasting political reality. The new kingdom faced the challenge of organizing territory, building authority, and maintaining its identity beside larger powers. Over time, monarchy, religion, local elites, and military institutions helped consolidate the state. Portugal's long Atlantic coastline also became increasingly important. While many European powers looked mostly inward or toward continental rivalries, Portugal's rulers and merchants had a natural incentive to look outward. Ports, shipbuilding, navigation, and coastal trade became practical tools of survival and expansion. By the late medieval period, Portugal was positioned to pursue something much bigger than regional security. Its geography, state formation, and maritime experience came together at the right historical moment. The country was ready to transform from a Western Iberian kingdom into one of the great pioneers of oceanic exploration. During the Age of Discovery, Portugal changed world history. Portuguese sailors, mapmakers, shipbuilders, rulers, and merchants helped push European navigation beyond familiar routes. Their advances in nautical science and maritime exploration were not abstract achievements. They were tools for reaching new territories, finding sea routes, and creating commercial networks. Portugal's explorers moved along the African coast, across Atlantic waters, and eventually into the Indian Ocean and beyond. This expansion helped establish the Portuguese Empire, one of the earliest global maritime empires. Its influence reached Africa, Asia, South America, and island territories across the oceans. The motivations were mixed: trade, religion, prestige, strategy, and wealth all played roles. But the result was unmistakable. Portugal became a global connector. Spices, gold, enslaved people, missionaries, languages, ideas, and political power moved through Portuguese networks. The small Atlantic kingdom had become a force with worldwide consequences. The Portuguese Empire left a complicated legacy. It helped spread Portuguese language, architecture, religion, legal traditions, foodways, and cultural forms across several continents. At the same time, empire also involved violence, exploitation, forced labor, slavery, and colonial domination. Any serious explanation of Portugal's global role has to hold both realities together. The empire was a source of wealth and influence, but also of suffering and unequal power. Its historical reach is still visible today in countries and communities where Portuguese remains important. Portuguese is now one of the world's most widely spoken native languages, with more than 250 million native speakers. That fact is not because Portugal itself has a huge population. It is because Portuguese history became global through exploration, colonization, migration, and cultural exchange. Modern Portugal's identity is therefore tied not only to Europe, but to a much wider Portuguese-speaking world. Portugal's political history did not stop with empire. In 1910, the country became a republic, ending the monarchy and beginning a new constitutional phase. But the 20th century brought serious political instability and authoritarian rule. From 1926 until 1974, Portugal lived under dictatorship. This period limited political freedoms, shaped public life, and influenced the country's economy, society, and colonial policies. The dictatorship's end in 1974 was a dramatic turning point. Its overthrow opened the way for a democratic system, which was fully established with the constitutional framework of 1976. This transition matters because modern Portugal is not simply an old maritime nation with a glorious past. It is also a relatively recent democracy that had to rebuild political institutions, civil liberties, and public trust after decades of authoritarian control. The country's modern identity is deeply connected to that democratic transformation. Today, Portugal is a semi-presidential constitutional unitary republic and a multi-party representative democracy. That means political power is organized through elected institutions, constitutional rules, and separate bodies of sovereignty. Portugal has four main sovereignty bodies: the president, the government, the parliament, and the judiciary. Its national legislature is unicameral, meaning it has one chamber, known as the Assembly of the Republic. The country is divided into two autonomous regions, Madeira and the Azores, and 7 regions on the mainland. Yet Portugal remains highly centralized compared with some other European states. This balance between regional identity and central authority is important. The islands have their own geographic and political distinctiveness, while the mainland regions reflect different histories and economies. But national institutions in Lisbon still play a dominant role. Portugal's democratic system is therefore both pluralistic and centralized, modern yet shaped by long historical patterns. Portugal is considered a developed country with an advanced economy. Its modern economy depends heavily on services, industry, and tourism. Tourism is especially visible because Portugal offers historic cities, Atlantic beaches, wine regions, island landscapes, religious sites, cuisine, and a reputation for relative safety and accessibility. Lisbon, the capital and largest city, has become a major European destination, known for its hills, riverfront, architecture, trams, neighborhoods, and cultural life. But Portugal's economy is not only tourism. Industry, technology, trade, agriculture, energy, and services all play roles. The country's location also supports logistics, maritime interests, and international links. Like many European economies, Portugal faces challenges, including regional inequality, housing pressure in popular cities, demographic change, and competition for investment. Still, its combination of stability, infrastructure, European Union membership, cultural appeal, and Atlantic position gives it a distinctive economic profile. Portuguese culture has worldwide influence because it was shaped by many civilizations and then carried outward through migration, trade, empire, and language. Inside Portugal, culture varies by region, from northern traditions and Atlantic fishing communities to southern landscapes, island identities, and urban creativity. Music, literature, food, architecture, religious festivals, and family life all contribute to the country's social character. Fado, often associated with Lisbon, expresses themes of longing, memory, fate, and emotional depth. Portuguese cuisine reflects both land and sea, with fish, olive oil, bread, wine, stews, pastries, and regional ingredients playing central roles. Abroad, Portuguese culture connects with Brazil, Angola, Mozambique, Cape Verde, Guinea-Bissau, São Tomé and Príncipe, East Timor, Macau, Goa, and diaspora communities around the world. This makes Portugal culturally larger than its borders. Its influence is not simply a matter of state power, it lives through language, memory, migration, and everyday practices. Portugal's foreign policy reflects its history and geography. As a European state with a deep Atlantic identity, Portugal maintains relationships through European institutions, transatlantic ties, the Portuguese-speaking world, and broader international organizations. Its colonial and diplomatic history continues to shape how it sees itself, not as a giant power, but as a country with networks, language connections, strategic location, and historical reach. Membership in multiple international organizations gives Portugal a platform beyond its size. Its islands strengthen its Atlantic presence, while its mainland roots keep it tied to European politics. The story of Portugal is therefore a story of scale. A relatively small nation used geography, navigation, statecraft, and culture to create an outsized global footprint. From prehistoric settlement to medieval kingdom, from maritime empire to modern democracy, Portugal shows how a country at the edge of a continent can become central to the story of the world. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.